Dear friends, this week we begin reading the third book of the 5 books of the Torah, the book called Vayikra, and in English they call it Leviticus. And this book centers around the sacrifices, and the Torah begins where God's communicating to Moshe. But here the Torah does something unique. Instead of just saying, and God spoke to Moses, it starts off, Vayikra el Moshe, and God called to Moses. What does it mean, God called to Moses? God is always speaking to Moses. Why is he calling him now, which usually God does not call Moses, or at least we don't read about it? And the commentaries tell us, led by Rashi, something very fascinating, that God uses the same word when he called to another prophet, the greatest of the Gentile prophets, Bilam. And there it says Vayikra, which means that God chanced upon Bilam. So why when it talks to Moses, about Moses, it says, and he called out to Bilam, and to Moses, but by Bilam it says, and he chanced upon Bilam. And here there's a very profound lesson. And this is really something that's important for Moses, but important for every one of us. When God spoke to Moses, Moses understood that God speaking to him is a calling. Every time God spoke to Moses, every time God communicated to Moses, he realized that this is a calling with a mission, that he, by divine providence, has been chosen to fulfill this mission. As opposed to Bilam, who though he had great prophetic abilities, but every time God called to him it's like, oh, God found me. He chanced upon me. It happens to be I bumped into God. There was no significance of a mission, of a calling. It was just, oh, it's great, I saw God. And this is the underlying difference between the way Moshe taught us and how to understand life and what's going on. God doesn't call to any one of us the way he spoke to Moses. We don't have prophecy. Now, since the Second Temple, we don't have prophecy. But yet, God is calling to us all the time. Everything that happens in life around us is divine providence. Whoever God puts in front of us, the situations he puts us in, is God quietly behind calling to us. And he's telling us that within here there lies a calling and a mission for you. Don't take it for granted. Don't just shed it and throw it away. Don't think, okay, so I did nothing with it. But remember that everything is a mission. And God wants you to respond. And he's waiting for you to respond in the right way. And this is why the end of Vayikra, that extra letter that changed it from chance to a calling, is Aleph. Aleph stands for one, God. When you think about and you recognize God is in your life, you look at the world around you, you realize that everything is a calling. When I wake up in the morning, God gave me another day. He gave me a calling. He gave me a mission. What am I going to turn today into? How am I going to be productive to make my life better, the lives of the people around me, and the world better? We have to have the little Aleph in our lives. And it goes from a chance meeting to a calling. It goes from a chance meeting to a recognition that we're in a mission. And this is what we read always before or around the holiday of Pesach. God took us out of Egypt from slavery. Did he just free a bunch of slaves because he had pity on us? Or there was a deeper message that God was giving us a calling. Now you're going to become a nation. You're going to change and transform this world. And this is what we have to think about in our life. And try to pay attention at least every day to one thing, one event, a chance meeting, or another thing that was unplanned, and think, wow, this is God calling out to me. What can I do that will make God happy and that will make my life better, but more importantly, will make the life of the person or the situation I was called into better? Never put it aside and never say, it's not my role. Somehow you have to play a role. And when you do that, all of a sudden, you become partners with God. It's a very different feeling. The empowerment is incredible. So I want to wish you all success in answering your calling. I want to wish you Shabbat Shalom. This is a special Shabbat. We take out 3 Torahs this week in synagogue. There's a lot of great merits when you're there, when 3 Torahs are brought out to be read. Try to be in synagogue tomorrow. This Shabbat, candlelighting time is 6:43 p.m. in Montreal. Love you all. May God bless you.